first few questions are going to refer to this graph. In this graph, we have price and quantity of a good. The first question is, suppose the figure represents domestic supply and demand in a small country. What world price will result in this country exporting 6 units of the good? 6 units. So first of all, if this country is to export, would the world price be higher or lower than the domestic equilibrium price? Higher, right? Because at the higher price, there's more supply than demand. When we have that, we have excess quantity that we can export. So the question is basically at what price above the domestic price is the difference between quantity supplied and quantity demanded exactly 6, right? So we just can look at the graph and figure out where that is. Where is it? Here? At the price of 11, I guess. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exactly. So at a price, at the world price of $11, the quantity supplied is going to be, what is this, 12, and the quantity demanded is going to be 6, so the difference would be exactly 6, and that's the amount we're going to export. So the answer to this question is $11, B. All right. Suppose the figure represents domestic supply and demand in a small country. The world price is 5. What quota will result in domestic production of 6 units? So whenever we have a quota, basically we're going to supply, let's see what it is, the world price is 5. So first we start by supplying by domestic supply. At some point we have imports, we start importing. However, if you put a limit on those imports, at that point, then we're going to go back to domestic supply, but then the supply curve is just going to be parallel to the original supply curve. So basically we need to figure out at what quantity, total quantity supplied, will domestic supply be equal to exactly 6. So pretty much this is what's going to happen. Right, at the price of 5, we're here. Now if there is no restriction, right, no quotas, this is the amount of imports that we have. However, as soon as we put a quota somewhere, let's say here, then domestic supply kicks in with parallel supply curve. Whenever the two curves intersect, this is the total quantity that's being sold, right? Whatever that is here. And getting the total quantity minus the quota will give us the domestic supply. So basically we need the total quantity minus the quota to be equal to 6. And let's figure out where that is. Let's try some of the answers and see what happens. Right, so let's start with 4. So if there's a quota of 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4, at this point domestic supply is going to kick in again, right? If there's a quota of 4, total quantity supplied needs to be 10, right? So that domestic supply is 6. And total quantity is 10, and there's an import of 4. Domestic supply is only 6. So we need total quantity to be 10. So basically we need the new supply curve and the demand curve to intersect at 10, which is here. Now, if you draw the supply curve between those 2 points, is it parallel to the original supply curve?
No.
No. So that cannot be. If you try the second one, which is 5, right? So with 5 as a quota, what do we need the total amount sold to be so that domestic supply is 6?
I'm not sure what.
If we import 5 and we want domestic suppliers to provide 6, what should the total quantity sold be? 5 comes from outside, 6 comes from the inside. What should the total be? 11. There you go. So we need them to intersect at the point at 11. So that is here. Now, if again draw the supply curve between those two, is that going to be parallel to the original supply curve?
Yeah.
Parallel. What does parallel mean? That they don't ever intersect.
Oh, okay.
Right? So it's not. And the next one is 6. Now if I'm at 6, how much the total quantity sold needs to be for domestic supply to be 6?
9.
I'm importing 6, and I want domestic suppliers to get 6. What's the total? 12. Where is 11, 12? Here. And that's it, right? Now it's exactly right. And if you check it, basically the distance between this supply curve, the horizontal distance between this supply curve and the new supply curve needs to be 6 everywhere above 5. And if you check it, let's say here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So it's exactly right. They're exactly parallel, which is what we want. So the answer would be 6 units in this case. So if we put an import quota, right, then we're going to import 6 here. The rest of it is going to get picked up by domestic supply again, with the total quantity being sold being 12. Does that make sense? All right. The country places a 2 per unit tariff on imports and is importing 6 units. What is the world price of the good? So first of all, if the country is importing, right, are we below or above the domestic equilibrium? Below. And we know that below, we are importing, 6 units, right? So basically the difference between the quantity demanded and the quantity supplied is 6 units, correct, at the price. Find where that is. So 6 units in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's right here, right? And this happens at what price?
7.
7. So is 7 the answer then? Is that the world price? No, 7 is the world price plus the tariff, correct? So if 7 is the world price plus the tariff, and the tariff is 2, how much is the world price?
5.
Exactly. So it's C in this case, right? Alright, suppose again represents demand and supply in a small country. The world price for this product is $3, so it's here. The government imposes a 4 per unit tariff on imported goods. What is the deadweight loss due to the tariff? So remember, deadweight loss that is due to a tariff is basically comparing total surplus after the tariff to total surplus before the tariff, right? So world trade is already allowed. This is the base case. And then the government comes in and imposes the tariff. So let's look at the picture. So before the tariff, the world price of 3. Well, this country is basically importing only, right? And total surplus is basically the area of this big triangle, correct? After the tariff, which is in the amount of 4 units, or $4 per unit, then we have a world price, then we have a price of 7. Right. At the new price, this part here would be what? What do we call that part? Consumer surplus. And producer surplus, it is below the price but above the supply curve. So producer surplus will be here, correct? In addition to that, since we have a tariff, the government is also getting money, and this is also part of the total surplus. And the tariff is 4. The tariff is $4, right? This is 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is the amount that they're going to import when they impose the tariff. So basically this rectangle here would be the revenue that the government gets, right? Which is also part of the surplus. Right. So now when we do this, we see that there's 2 areas that are left, right? And that's basically the difference between total surplus without the tariff and the total surplus with the tariff. And those are these 2 triangles here. So we need to basically find the area of these two triangles, add it together, and that will give us our deadweight loss. So they're right triangles, so one side is always 4, right? This is the amount of the tariff. And then the other side is basically the difference between quantity supplied without the tariff and quantity supplied with the tariff, and quantity demanded without, quantity demanded with. But we can just count it in this case, we don't need to calculate. Those are actually identical triangles, right? So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this is 6 as well. So we have 6 times 4 divided by 2 plus 6 times 4 divided by 2. 24. So deadweight loss. Now they don't have to be identical, right? The two triangles. So I need to make sure that they're not. Right, 24. And that will be the deadweight loss, and this would be answer C.